Spinning plates, hypergamy, female nature, red pill truths that will change your dating life and help you be awake in the matrix of navigating relationships with women. Or so I thought. This video is going to be a critique of some of the so-called red pill truths that are out there. I will say that I'm going to talk about it through a lens that maybe you've never heard before, because I do believe in the concept of consuming the meat and spitting out the bones. There's a huge aspect, a whole dimension that the red pill world totally neglects. And that is the spiritual aspect. Because I'm going to tell you right now that through strictly the lens of the ego, that yes, the red pill world has a lot of truth, and it takes you from one level of your ego, which is victimhood, to another level of your ego, which is a form of self-empowerment. But it's a form of self-empowerment that becomes dark and it becomes toxic very fast. I have immersed myself in the world of red pill at some point, especially when certain relationships ended. I couldn't really make sense of the world of dating, and there was a lot of confusion there. And then, lo and behold, the red pill. So let's dive into it. First thing I want to say is female nature. Let's just talk about human nature for a moment, okay? Whether you're a man or a woman, there is a lower egoic human nature that we all have. Now, it does tend to manifest itself differently depending on if you're a man or a woman. If you're a man, then if you're moving strictly from that human egoic nature, then you want abundance of women. You want to have loads of options. You want to be able to sleep with a bunch of different women, spin plates as they call it, where you date multiple women. And that feels really good to the ego. It really makes you feel like a man. And I have, of course, dabbled in that world, and I have successfully spun plates, if you will. And it wasn't as gratifying as I thought it was. Because in order to do that, I had to willingly blind myself to the higher nature that is within me. And most people, not everybody, but most people believe in a higher power. They believe in a dimension beyond just the physical. And through the lens of just this physical 3D world, the ego is king. We want to have money, we want to have status, we want to have women, and then that's it. You've arrived. You're better than other people. You are a king in a sense, right? You are someone worth taking advice from. And there are a lot of men in that space who have achieved all of these things. But I'm going to tell you that they've gained the world, and in many ways have either lost their soul or they've never found their soul to begin with. And spirituality, I'm not talking through the lens of religion, okay? Religion is fine, but it really is just a modality. It's a tool to explore the spiritual. And there is no right or wrong modality. So you might be Muslim, you're like, my way is the way, you might be Christian, it really doesn't matter. You can get to a point where you transcend religion and you tap into the higher essence of yourself, you tap into the divine, and most people haven't done that. And I have tapped into this area of my life early on to some extent, and once I started to consume red pill content, I really went all in. I really wanted to kind of explore that world a bit and see what level of fulfillment I could find. And It wasn't good. Even when I was gaining success, and like really applying those principles, it left me with this emptiness inside. And I don't recommend it. I really don't. I recommend, like I said, consuming the meat and spitting out the bones. So for instance, things like a lot of men pine for women, and they act like women are just like these angels. And they aren't. They're human beings. And just like there are men who are at different levels of their ego or different levels of deeper truths like spirituality, there's also women like that too. And if you start really adopting the beliefs of Redpill, of hypergamy and female nature, and viewing all women through this like lens of like, there are no good women out there, they're victims of their hypergamous nature of always looking for the next best thing, then that's all you're going to attract. Because chances are, if you believe that, then you're also the type of guy who wants to be able to attract an abundance of women. So there is a double standard in a sense to where some of these like red pill guys, like the leaders of it, some like the older guys who talk about it, some of them have like daughters, and they talk about wanting to protect their daughters' sexual purity to an extent because that's what makes them valuable in the dating market. Yet these men are going out there and trying to sleep with as many women as possible. They're trying to spin plates and not treating whoever they're dating with the same level of respect that they would their daughter. And then they justify it by saying, oh, well, these are like low quality women anyway. And it's just, I hope you can see how it's just a bit of a dark paradigm. And if you want to become a more self-actualized person who transcends an element of their ego, then you've got to let some of this shit go. Consume the meat, spit out the bones with this red pill stuff. When it comes to spinning plates, I don't recommend just like dating a bunch of women and having sex with them. Okay? As you start to respect yourself and love yourself and transcend elements of your ego, you become more selective with who you share your sexual energy with. It's not just like this like random thing anymore. So you have to really decide the kind of man you want to be and the kind of man that you are becoming. And there's no judgment, because obviously there's different levels to this. And I have been at stages in my life where I was very deep in ego and, I hurt people. But even in the midst of that, when I was like spinning plates and hanging out with different women and being irresponsible in that way with people's emotions, a part of me was blinding myself. And I could still feel the higher self, the higher aspect of me whispering like, hey, this kind of behavior, it's not loving. It's not who you want to become deep down. But there was an element of me having to burn through that phase and that desire to eventually transcend it. And so I'm going to tell you right now, if this video can save you going too deep down that path, then that's awesome. But there will probably be an element of you that needs to go down that path to an extent, especially if you've been really deeply hurt by women or in relationships. Then exploring, some of that red pill world makes sense for a time, but don't get stuck there. Realize that at some point, if you don't transcend that, you're just going to start to suffer, and you're going to start to see the world through a lens that is very dark, very judgmental, and you will start to disconnect yourself from the feminine. And we all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. And you start to disconnect yourself from that, from the feeling side of things, which is also where your intuition is. So this goes pretty deep. And something that I realized when I was going down that path was I would occasionally see a beautiful woman inside and out. Like, she respected herself, she was spiritual, she gave off like this energy of light rather than like dark egoic energy. But when I was immersed in that red pill philosophy, it's like I was invisible to them. Like they couldn't see me. They couldn't perceive me as a potential person to date because I was emitting this darker energy. So, hey man, very quick break in the video. If ever you are considering joining the Conscious Men community, now would be the time to do it. Price just went from $129 a month to $79 a month, and this is very temporary. Once you're in the community, it's locked in. Every week there are 2 group calls, so you will have plenty of opportunities to have a one-on-one conversation with me. Any topics, any questions, and right now the community is small enough to where every call you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to talk to me. When we're on these calls, I'm just there to serve. I'm there to help the guys that are in the community. There's also over 100 hours of previously recorded Zoom calls that you'll immediately get access to. And there's also a couple of courses in the community. Depending on what you're interested in and what your goals are, there is a body transformation course. It's everything that I've learned in the last 15 years of lifting, health, nutrition. I've basically done all the self-experimentation so you don't have to. It really is the only fitness course that you will ever need. There's also a mini course in there on how I create my videos. If ever you've watched my YouTube channel and you've wondered how I get that cinematic look in my car chats, I break everything down. I share all the techniques, all the camera gear, how I achieve that crisp look without any team. All of it is just done by myself. As you're probably aware by now, I do offer one-on-one coaching and mentoring, but I get dozens and dozens of forms every week, so I have to turn a lot of guys away. The members in the community get first access whenever slots open up for the one-on-one program. So if that's something that you're considering investing in at some point, I would recommend getting in the community first and then sending me a message. But regardless, you can cancel at any time. So if you just want to jump in there, have a few quick conversations with me, and then cancel, you're more than welcome to. Take advantage of it while the price is this low. The link is in the description. Back to the video. You essentially attract what you are becoming. Learn some fundamentals about dating, okay? Learn how to respect yourself and not placate or supplicate to women, especially women that don't want you or don't respect you or don't, acknowledge you. Okay, like learn those aspects, but then do it without resentment. Don't start to consume what are those shows, like the Fresh and Fit stuff where it's like they interview these women and it's all just low quality women. And these are the types of women that they probably attract into their lives. And so there's that confirmation bias where they've also created like an echo chamber between themselves where they all agree with each other. Women are like this, women are like that, sugar and spice and all things nice. Like it's not true. Women, wait at the finish line for the winners and ignore all the other guys. There are elements of truth that yes, if you want to attract a high quality woman, that you have to become the version of the woman you want to attract, but the masculine equivalent of that. So look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror, both internally and externally. What kind of energy are you putting out? Is it judgmental? Is it hateful? Is it like a darker energy that's like more egoic? Then that's what you're going to perceive and potentially attract. And then also externally, have you cultivated that space of self-love to where you can take care of yourself, where you don't have loads of body fat, where you don't have chronic illness, where you don't stare at a TV screen for 8 hours a day playing video games? Like, are you the embodiment of the equivalent quality woman that you want to attract into your life? Focus on that. Let go of these red pill truths of oh, women are just like hypergamous and they all are like this or like that. That is a form of victimhood consciousness. And I know it can seem like empowerment, but I'm telling you, man, it's not. I hope this video attracts the guys that can receive this message. And I know some of you won't be able to. I understand that. When I was deep into like the red pill stuff, it just seemed like very factual. And since I had my own confirmation bias, my own echo chamber of all the content I was recording, it seemed very factual. But eventually, I decided to rise above it. I recognized my own victimhood in that, and then my dating life got 100 times better. I started attracting more high quality women. I started realizing more of what I wanted. I wasn't spinning plates in the sense to where I was just trying to have sex with all these women, but I was going on multiple dates just to observe the different women and the different energies that were out there to kind of get clear on what I wanted to attract into my life. And that's when my dating life got a lot better. And I also became a lot less judgmental, because I am telling you right now that from an egoic level, no, people can't change from the egoic level. But if you start to have a deep spiritual awakening, then it can change everything. It can transform who you are. Rather, it gets rid of the parts of you that you are not. This is both for men and women. So a woman that has, a certain past, maybe she slept with men, if she has a legitimate spiritual awakening, like I'm not talking about just like the born again virgin thing, like, oh, like I'm a Christian now to, make the perception of my past seem better now. But I'm talking about on a deep heart level, right? Christianity talks about like a repentant heart. I'm not trying to, make this about religion. But when you have a deep spiritual awakening, you start to see things through the lens of love and oneness. And it is super fucking transformative. It changes who you are. A lot of people in my past that knew me, old friends, old relationships, they don't even recognize me now, because there's been a deep fundamental change after I started having a series of spiritual awakenings. And if you're on the fence about that, I want you to look into NDEs, near-death experiences. I think the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, I've read hundreds, maybe thousands at this point. And when I started to have deep mystical experiences through meditation and plant medicine, I started to have like my own form of not a near-death experience, but I started to understand some deeper truths that I never could perceive before. And I'm telling you, dude, there's a whole other dimension. And when you start to open yourself up to that other dimension and the divine, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, things become more nuanced. It's no longer black and white from an egoic standpoint, and you start to see people's heart. So if there's a beautiful woman in front of you and she has a past, but she's had a deep spiritual awakening and she's transformed from the inside out, then you're not going to be holding her past against her anymore. And you're not going to be judging her. You're going to see her through a deeper lens of love and knowing that goes well beyond anything the ego could ever understand. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but I hope this helps you, man. If you're in like deep in the red pill world, it's not as black and white as they tell you. And a lot of these guys that are super, awake in the red pill land, they're not as happy as you might think. A lot of them are deep, deep in suffering, and they themselves are not okay. And these are the people you're taking advice from. So that's all I got for you tonight. I hope this helps you. One more thing, I do offer coaching and mentoring. If that's something that you might be interested in, I could only take on 1 or 2 more guys right now because there's only one of me. But link in the description if that interests you. You are loved, you matter, and you have barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.